so I sold everything that I owned, and I locked myself in my garage for about a couple years, and I did not come out until I had the answers that I needed, that I knew, that I could tell my own father. Because for me, it was the integrity issue, right? If I said marijuana growing up, my father would beat my ass.
Right.
And so this was a drug. You were a non-performer. But in reality, I used cannabis through a series of microdosing that became a performance enhancer for me, both proactively and reactively. Reactively, I knew how I could utilize it. I knew that if I was triggered, if I started feeling the hyperarousal, which I did, yeah, that's the way I lived,
Yeah.
I could integrate this medicine at a small dose that would allow me to be in the present, in order to perform. It was the only thing that got rid of my migraines. It's the only thing that allowed me to eat and rid of the GI disorder or the discomfort in the mornings. And so I started integrating it on a daily basis, and both reactively and proactively. So even now, those things, once I gained confidence in this plan as a medicine, those situations that I knew were known triggers for me, I would inhale prior. Right, and I inhaled because it didn't take 45 to an hour and 15 minutes for my body to metabolize it, and depending on what I ate would really dictate how I experienced that medicine. So the inhalation was what gave me the consistency. And so going into these trigger situations like crowded places or airports, or having conversations with my spouse about some very emotional things, and kind of shedding perspective and processing emotion and walking through those triggers, I was able to integrate cannabis prior to that and produce good outcomes in situations that generally produce bad outcomes. So now what was I doing? I was training my body. Right? My mind knew this was safe, but when I went into this situation, my body didn't. It went the opposite direction. So what if I could sit in these emotions and produce a different outcome? And that's what started happening, is now in these bad situations that I was avoiding, I was now proactively putting myself in them and producing better outcomes. This was retraining my body. And that, when I started doing that, and I started seeing that if I controlled neurotransmission, right, the adrenaline, the cortisol, if I could shut off that HPA axis, I could start to control the outcomes on the right side of the equation that people see: family, relationships, social integration, occupation, professionalism, your spirituality, right? So if I can control the left side of the equation, I can get better outcomes on the right side of the equation. And so cannabis was not a way to avoid. It was not a way to escape. It was a way for me to become functional and to reintegrate and start producing better outcomes.